everybody, I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actress Podcast, and this is episode number 86. Looking to fix yourself up for the best self-tape May ever! This episode is titled Being a Working Actor with Desean Terry. Desean Terry is an incredible actor. He's on The Morning Show. He's a theater director. He's an acting coach. He is a series regular on The Morning Show. We discussed how to prepare for the realities of being a working actor, the good and the bad. I wouldn't say bad, the hard, sometimes bad, all of the above. How to financially plan for the working actor lifestyle, that's so important. How transparency can not only help yourself, but also help the entire acting community. And you know I'm all about that. How to not get screwed by your first big contract. And decolonizing the arts, an important conversation. All right, it's the Self-Tape May Challenge. You guys, I am loving these stickers. The stickers give me life. I'm not gonna lie, I would really like some Rick and Morty stickers. Just if you got a Rick and Morty sticker, tag me. I'm also really looking for some Witcher sides. Who's got the Witcher? I wanna see some Witcher. Shout out to @SelfTapeJillian for doing 9 already. Jillian, she's over halfway done, and we're only recording this on Tuesday, May 3rd. She's from the Southeast Market. Get it, Jillian. Just behind her, we've got Laura, SHAPANUS at 8 tapes. She's from New York. And just behind her, we've got All Surreal with 7 tapes from the Northwest LA. Yeah, I mean, get it going, you guys. You're not even in the top 3 right now. And how do I know this, you ask? How do I know who is leading the charge of the Self-Tape May Challenge? Because of our leaderboard. You can see the leaderboard yourself at selftapemay.net. That's selftapemay.net. Sign up for free and join the leaderboard yourself. Maybe you want a little friendly competition. Maybe you just want to represent your market and see what people in your market are doing. Maybe you just want to see who's doing Witcher sides like me. You can do that. And you can sort it by Witcher. You can sort it by your market. You can sort it wherever you want. I would just like a little more Witcher. That's all I'm going to say. You have it in your power to do more Witcher. And I am so looking forward to it. Happy to see New Zealand on the leaderboard, Australia on the leaderboard, Canada, Midwest. Everyone is up there except for the Northeast. Where are you? Nowhere to be seen. Where are you, Northeast? Even more shocking, Europe. All of Europe? You're not even on the leaderboard yet? Where are you, Europe? Get yourself on the leaderboard at selftapemay.com.net. It goes to the same place. Everything is free. Free, Frizzo free, my favorite price free. And if you need help with your Self-Tape May, you can check out our sponsors while you're there. If you need sides, go to castability.actor/selftapemay to get 20 free sides emailed to you. That is castability.actor/selftapemay to get 20 free sides. If you need a reader, go to weaudition.com and use promo code selftapemay, weaudition.com. Promo code SelfTapeMay. And if you need some real auditions, you know, who doesn't want to tape real auditions as part of Self-Tape May on mute? You're going to put your real auditions on mute. Go to castingnetworks.com/Audrey for $50 off your premium membership. In addition to that, if you sign up at selftapemay.com and if you make it to 16 tapes, you will automatically be entered to win the $1,000 prize package from our sponsors. And you'll get to be on the podcast. Selftapemay.com. It's free, always free, Frizzle free. My favorite price is free. For free, you can participate, and then you can get lots of great prizes and a little chitty chat with yours truly. Looking forward to it. More reviews, everyone. More reviews. Okay, you guys. The review baby's light is just getting like a little dim. There were only 3 reviews this last week. And you know, this little review baby gets scared without the light of your reviews because it reminds them of the sad well. The scary well that they fell down. So to stave off the baby's PTSD with the light of your reviews this week, will you help us out? Here are 3 valiant people who took that undertaking. MK Underhill, J. Dest F, Jedefs, E, and ... I just want to thank you personally for taking such good care of this baby. You are keeping the baby afloat. For the rest of you, maybe don't care about the baby. Maybe you're just like, put that baby in the well. But I just know that's true. I know you care. You care because we're literally right now at 999 reviews on Apple Podcasts. 999. Are you going to be the review that pushes us to 1,000? Better hurry. RateThisPodcast.com/Audrey on your phone or wherever you're listening to this podcast on. Go, go, go. www.ratethispodcast.com/Audrey. The baby's like, what? Please help me. I need some light. Please save me. I'm so scared of the scary well. I love your basking glow. That's my baby voice. I'm not a voiceover actor. I just want to take a second and say, what's up, everyone who showed up to our meetup? Whoop, whoop! That meetup was awesome! So many people came. You got stickers, you got button pins, you got towels. I mean, everyone just met so many people. Everyone met other readers. I want to do an extra special shout out to Kathleen Sweet Self-Tape and Samantha W. Miller. That's Kathleen Sweet _self-tape and @_Samantha Miller _. These two ladies showed up to the meetup and told me that they were there for the live show that we did January 2020. They met each other for the very first time. They became super besties. And Samantha was Kathleen's maid of honor for her wedding. You guys, bringing people together, it's one of my favorite things. So thanks so much, everyone, for coming to the meetup. I loved it. It was so great getting to know and meet all of you. You're the best. All right, everyone. I hope you're on your way to an audition and that you book it. I hope you're setting up your self-tape and that you book it. I hope you have a Zoom call back and that you book it. Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Desean Terry.
Hi, Desean. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. So we got connected through some mutual friends, and I am a huge fan of the morning show. And I am so excited to talk to you about so many things. I've been absorbing so many of the interviews you've already done through podcasts, the interviews you've done that have been published. And I'm really excited that we got connected because I think we have so many value sets in common when it comes to actors, when it comes to artists, and the lifestyle of being a working actor and what that really looks like in 2021. So I'd love to get started.
Can I say something about what I like about what you do?
Please.
Because I was thinking about when I came out of grad school, and I've always been a person who likes to read and sort of like learn from others' mistakes. So I came out of school wanting to, well, what can I read about the entertainment industry? Or back then it was Sam French, et cetera, et cetera. What are the things that I'm able to do? And then when I discovered your podcast, what I realized was like, yeah, Audrey moved into this space that people hadn't been in before, where it's like typically, to me, it felt like to get help as an actor, the help was either just sort of like very sort of basic things like, well, you need an agent. So you should send out headshots and resumes. And for a person like myself, who was like, I had, representation and, things like that, there was no one really covering the sort of broad spectrum and all the nuances that it actually takes to develop your career in so many different fronts in terms of the personal journey, the business journey, the relationship journey, the craft journey. And so I just think it's so cool that there is your show, which is dealing with all those nuances, which I wish I had back in the day. And I hope that people appreciate it now today.
Thank you so much for all of what you said. That really is my intention, was somewhere between I need to get my first headshots and I'm famous, so listen to my publicity interviews and talk about how you should watch my movie. And I felt like there was nothing really in between. And also I didn't feel like anything that was in between. I felt like it was kind of being covered in a really general way and by people who weren't necessarily actively doing it. You know, the information to me seemed older, it seemed antiquated, and I felt was misrepresentative of what was actually going on in the now, because the business trends and requirements change so fast that nobody was really staying on top of what that was.
Yeah. And additionally, when you did get something from someone, right, at least with me, there was always this sort of like, well, it's easy. Eventually you just start going on auditions. And then the publicity thing, you just go out and you just do it. And so there's been very little sort of like people who are willing to really pull back the curtain and say, no, from A to Z, booking that job to then sustaining your career or whatever it looks like. What are the things? How can we learn? And so again, I'm just fascinated by it because it's been fascinating to me as an actor, and it's cool to dialogue on it.
Yeah, I loved listening to some of the interviews, and you have talked about, first of all, you're born and raised in Los Angeles. You have had some really incredible mentors, it seems, throughout your life, and had some guidance, and a lot of people sort of speak faith unto you, which I just really love the blessings of that. And I would love for you to talk about where you are in terms of, are you union? What representation do you have?
So I'm SAG-AFTRA and I'm equity. Been that for a really, really long time. And then before the morning show, I started to look at my business way more holistically. And so I became way less dependent on auditions. And I'm still one of those people, and not because people are just calling and offering me jobs. Let's be clear.
An important distinction.
Yeah, sometimes they do, which is nice, but nothing of like I'm going to make money to live for the next 10 years. What comes from an offer? It just really comes from I really like building relationships with people, and I try to approach it very authentically in terms of like I'm attracted to your work. I think it's really cool. Maybe you're attracted to my work as well. Maybe there's some connection that we can do together. And it's happened throughout the years that then those sort of connections then just build into people who are growing in their business as well. First, they're like, hey, do my web series with me. And then that person, is now doing a TV show or they're doing a bigger film. And so I really love those collaborations. So I really depend on that. And I'm hoping that those collaborations will last throughout my entire career. So before morning show, I was probably going on, I would say maybe like 1 or 2 auditions a month, but I wasn't really leaning into it. At that point in time, I'd already made the decision that I was approaching things holistically. And so I was leaning into my theater company. I was leaning into producing the work I wanted to be involved in. And so I wasn't like really pushing the audition track at that point in time. But that machine had sort of been built for years, right? Of just like doing that. And so I had that bit of freedom. And then with the morning show, on good weeks, I'm getting like 4 or 5 appointments. And then sometimes, some weeks there's nothing. Right now, there's a lot of press interviews and there's just a lot of more overseeing stuff. And then now there's also more of turning down auditions when I'm just asking myself just sort of like, why am I doing that job? Why would I audition for this job? I'm not necessarily looking at it for the financial reward right now. I'm looking for, collaborators and stories and worlds I want to be in, et cetera. So there's more of that strategy happening from time to time. But it's still, to be clear, especially being a series regular in this day and age, it's still not like, oh my God, you're going to get like 2,500 auditions every week. And it's still a hustle. It's still moving from one, okay, you have a leg up here, but now how do I strategize to get to the next place I want to get to?
Right. The hustle for me, when I went through a publicity circuit, really changes. It was kind of a weird discovery that like I was doing this publicity. I felt my intention was to get more and a better quality auditions, capitalizing on the publicity of the project. But then sometimes seeing that my energy from that publicity would wane and then infringe upon my energy and attitude for the audition. And it was an interesting balancing act of like, well, what do I say no to in terms of these interviews and in terms of that publicity and in terms of whatever that weird machine is, and keeping my intention clear of like, I don't actually need to be at this party, or I don't actually need to answer this interview email. And actually what I need to do is maybe read this script, look at this director's work, and give this same time, space, and attention and passion to this opportunity, because the publicity exists for the opportunity, not the other way around, which I think can sometimes get scrambled. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, there's a big sort of negotiating of time, and there's also a sort of like, I need to get a good publicity circuit. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. And then now I feel like I'm having a good publicity circuit, and it's just sort of, there's still moments like, why am I doing this? And yeah, like if you could look over to the other side, I have self-tape set up right there so that I can go do a self-tape after this. Yeah, there is negotiating. And I think that what is useful for me, though, is that getting this type of attention, I think later on, well, not later on, I mean, I'm middle-aged. I'm set in my ways, meaning that like there's interviews and things that come in to go to a party, and I'm less likely to respond to that email because it's like, I've decided how I want to do this. And how I want to do this is just as important as what I get done. Meaning that I'm not gonna now, like I did in my 20s, try to pretend that I'm this like, oh, so sociable guy. And you just got to get me at a party. It's not gonna happen because I'm not good in that circuit. So I have to spend time like, okay, I'll do these interviews. And honestly, I'm doing a lot of them because they're on Zoom. If it was a year ago or a year and a half ago, I don't know how much more I would be doing, and it would be a lot more taxing, but it's so much easier to do them on Zoom. But I know that about myself. Like I know I can reach more people digitally because I'm an introvert and I like to stay at home. And I know I'm not going to be at that party, and I need to craft time to work on the scripts that I'm working with people and collaborating and directing projects. And yes, the publicity can start because it's so glitzy and glamoury. Like I feel like, oh, I can just put my attention there, but I have to negotiate it and do as much as I can in this moment of reaping or sowing. It's kind of both. Take advantage of it, but also keep track of all the other things. But it helps that I already have a greater sense of what my lanes are than I did in my 20s, you know?
I just love all of what you're saying, because what you're really talking about in both directions that you've sort of brought up that I'm talking a lot about in this season, which is infrastructure. And that you were saying when you really decided to look at things more holistically, the auditions that was sort of set up already, in that you had bookings underneath you, you were union, you had representation, you had some relationships with casting and people who had booked you before. So that was sort of a wheel that was more or less turning. Mm-hmm. And then also now you're in this place where you have like your emotional infrastructure more set up, your maturity infrastructure more set up. You have relationships in a greater context, I'm guessing, in terms of lawyer and publicist and manager, agent, and just there's legs there so that your perspective on the publicity and your intentionality for it has some clarity, which allows you to be a little less moved by the wind of everyone else's needs and allows you to be the focal point that pushes it forward so it's not pushing you around.
Yeah, like there's been some publicity that's come and we've 100% without a question, no doubt. No, even if that hurts me, meaning that I don't become more famous because I didn't do that, that's not an option because that doesn't attract to the overall lifestyle I want to live. And so I know that, but I wouldn't have been able to say no to that 10 years ago. Definitely.
I love that. I mean, one of the things that we had discussed about you coming on the show, what is the intentions of the interview? Like, what are some things you'd like to really discuss? And the first thing you said is demystifying what a working actor is. And I think so much about that and people becoming more honest with all of the juggling that you have to do, which isn't just getting auditions and getting agents and getting booking, but really managing your money, managing your mental health, managing your emotional health, managing your relationships, personal and professional, that you really are running this business. And I remember thinking in my idea of it that it like got smaller and more focused. And actually what happened is it got bigger because it was like I grew a team. I grew this list of employees, like for lack of a better word, around me who were then dependent more or less on various streams of income that I was then bringing in, the business that I was able to bring in, and the responsibility I felt towards that, the pressure of that. And also there's still then the work, the actual, let me think about this character, let me craft an audition, let me experience and find some life and truth and honesty and story in this. So when you think about demystifying the lifestyle of an actor, what do you have to say to these actors of all levels?
Yeah, money is a big part of it. It really is. And it's not just for actors, but I think there's definitely a need for it in our community. Someone I know just booked a recurring. It's one of those things where they were like, they've been in the guest star phase for a number of years and they've been like, I'm never gonna level up. And then all of a sudden they got a phone call. I'm going to New Mexico. I don't know when I'm gonna be back. Okay. And so I called them and I told them, I said, I know this is probably tough timing, but I at least want to just put it in your ear right now. Have you started an escort? And she was like, well, I don't know, because she's still just like on the high of like, I just booked the shop. And I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh God, okay, so she's recurring, it's a new show. Maybe she's actually a regular, but they're not ready to give her a regular contract, or if she was a regular, and so they're dropping. So she needs to be prepared that if this is gonna lead into a series regular, that at least she knows what that is. So I had a conversation with her about that. Also, for me, really building that infrastructure financially before I got the series regular check was really important. Things like a Roth IRA, even understanding the SAD pension. So many people just don't understand it. And even my understanding of it could be better, to be quite frank and honest. But I do know how to go in, and it was like, oh, okay. Because for me, honestly, acting and thinking about acting can become so much about your talent, and it sort of lives in this echo chamber of your existential crisis, and there's all this noise in terms of like self-worth. And here I am, a trained actor, and it's like I've had enough people say to me, you're good, you're talented, that I shouldn't need that anymore, right? But sometimes it's still clouds and fogs things, and then I'm making things about that. So for me to actually go through and to make things more firm about, okay, I need to get a pension credit. How much money did I make this year? I need to get this. Setting these goals for myself, they actually then made it less about getting caught up in that stuff. And so then I built the sort of financial structure, investing money and saving money, even when I thought I couldn't do it. Meaning that like, take money out and just save it, so that I don't have all of that clouding me when I go into an audition.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because, again, in terms of infrastructure, it's like I'm such a big believer in pre-paving where you want to go. And if you are waiting until the big bangs, the windfalls happen for you to start understanding money, or more common for most actors, if you are in such financial trauma that you can't even see what a financial pre-paving would even look like if you started getting $100,000, $150,000 a year on a recurring guest with some residual income. Like that just seems like, oh God, I would just like plug in all these debt holes and I would just then finally go on a vacation I've never been on. And you're just sort of like in financial trauma and coping. Then what I experience is the cycle for most actors is they then get there, they get that money, and then they quit their jobs or they quit an understanding of what to do with money, and all that money is gone. And they think that the momentum of that booking is going to just like, oh, okay, now this is my permanent life. Like I will now be a booking consistent working actor making 150 plus grand a year. And then that show gets canceled or their character dies off or the character that they're relating to in every episode gets killed off. And suddenly they're not making that money anymore. And then they're excited to be maybe getting a few guest star auditions. But the financial realities are if you book 2 guest star, top of show, 1 hour drama network guest stars at scale, you've made 20 grand this year. And in order for you to then be able to make that same 160 grand, you'd have to book 8 episodes as a top of show guest star. And I always said actors, so let me ask you a question. How many actors do you personally know who have had multiple years of booking 8 top of show guest stars in 1 year? And they're all like, I don't know anyone. And I'm like, okay, great. So what does that tell you about the possibility of that happening to you? And then what occurs is this incredible sense of shame, an incredible sense of guilt, and a perpetuating of financial habits back into debt, back into coping and trauma, because they have not set up what to do with that windfall in a constructive way and have unrealistic expectations about the now permanent nature of that win. That then when it turns out to be, oh, you booked 2 guest stars this year, which is a great win, the shame cycle of that keeps them, I think, in debt, in trauma, in pain as actors and artists. That really breaks my heart, honestly, to see happening again and again and again.
Well, I think as artists, we tend to have the Peter Pan syndrome. And I think we need the Peter Pan syndrome because we have to stay young. We have to have our hope, and not for business, but actually for the art, because it's so much within the human essence that for us to have that hope and love in our world. And so I think sometimes we don't want to do things like the financial education or, really learning about these things because it's ultimately attached to mortality. And so it can feel very sort of different and dissonance from art. Like, no, what are you talking about? We're going to live forever. Why do I need to put attention there? And for me, the reality of it is taking my attention outside of just putting all of my energy into the art and crafting it, which I think you should put so much attention into that, but to put my energy also into the business, into understanding this or understanding all these other things really help my life overall. Like right now, I'm in negotiation for this thing, and it's really tough because I really do believe as actors, you can plan on the fact that there could be this one big job. It becomes huge. And yeah, you get a lot of money, but you also lost because then maybe the industry won't see you in another way. We're like, it's not a typical industry where like a doctor who's going to make $500,000 a year for the rest of his life, as long as he's practicing. And so as actors, like we have to understand that. Because I think they try to trick us by showing us the price tag for a year or whatever, but we take risk. This might be the only series regular that I have in my entire career. And so the thing I'm negotiating right now, I feel like there's a lot of risk with it. And so we'll see what I end up getting or if I end up doing it, because I'm comfortable saying I might not do that. Because if you're not willing to put that into the mix, and maybe they don't want me to put that into the mix at this point in time, but I do feel that coming to it from the table of understanding or looking at those things long term helps me in my negotiation.
Yes. Just all the yes, because you said trick us, and I have a different word I use called exploit us. And it's really that financial education about our contracts, education about what other series regulars on a similar network, other series regulars with maybe similar credits or not similar credits, whatever it is, the transparency around money, around what the contracts really allow, disallow, all of these little hidden, really sneaky little things that get put in that you don't realize have massive effect on what you're actually walking away with until you have lived it, unless we are doing exactly what you did, which I just love so much. I do this for actors as well. I just want everyone, if you're listening and you are a series regular actor, if you've had windfalls, whether that's a commercial campaign or a recurring guest or whatever it is, and you hear of an actor who gets that, reach out to them. And that is how we lift each other up. That is how we, stronger, united. That's how we do it, is through educating and informing each other about the realities of what these contracts are really doing. It's in saying to somebody, okay, so you just signed this contract. So I want to tell you about what happened with me or with my friend who signed a similar contract, here's some things that are sneaky. Here's some things to just know about or to look out for. And for me in my negotiations, that information is empowering because everyone on your team, you're still the point person. And if I give over that power to the lawyer because I think, well, they know more than me, or I give over that power to the agent, I don't know to what degree people want to close the deal, or to what degree anyone else has allegiance to the producer or to the network. I have friends who are entertainment lawyers and they have an allegiance to this other client who they're trying to book at this other rate. And so you're getting the smaller rate and you just don't know that, and you just don't get that information. And so to whatever degree I can arm myself with knowledge of what is even just standard, then that allows me to properly negotiate because it's emotional negotiations.
We've been taught that we're not supposed to talk about finances. So that lingers as a Black actor as well. Finding out and educating and getting more and more information about what's happening in the contracts, because there's still a huge gap between what Black and brown folks get paid, women get paid in comparison. And I've heard so many stories of people who were either number one or number two on the call sheet. And then they find out that, this actor who's a lower number, they're getting a bigger number than they are. One of my friends, of course, I can't say who they are, though I wish I could, because this is a good story. They're an actor of color, an ethnicity that we don't see as much as we should on TV. When they reached a series regular number of more than six figures per episode, they reached out to the people that were in their casting and say, hey, just so you know, this is what I'm being offered. Because that was historic for someone to have crossed that threshold. There's a part of that who feels like very much so like, ooh, right? But no, it's really arms people to know, hey, we crossed this barrier. We're crossing this barrier. Because if I'm getting this, you should be getting this. And so it's like, we got to figure out how to talk about it. Because I'm a person like 100%, like, okay, you want to talk about the details? This is what happened. You should do this better than me because I feel like I messed up over here, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes we get so caught up in the emotional life and the emotional that we can't even have those types of conversations, because acting ultimately for us at times, unfortunately, feels like some sort of conversation about our self-worth. And so it's like, we got to get rid of that tape before we can really start to find true value and make our lives and our art work in this crazy ass system.
I love so much of what you just said. And I just also want to say to actors who are getting these opportunities, one of my favorite things to do is when I get like a new contract or I get anything really, I love to call up my other actor friends and be like, hey, I'm about to sign this deal. What did you fuck up? Like, what did you do wrong so that I can do better? And sometimes it's small things. Like I was shooting out of town for 9 months and I didn't realize that having a separate space, because they're putting me in a hotel, and making sure that I had like a very separate space within the hotel for me to like live in from where I'm sleeping. And like just asking for that, which they'll give you, but you have to ask for it, because it gave me just a little bit more of a sense of like, okay, this is home and I work. And then on my days off, I can be in a living space and be a human being in a living space. So like little details like that can really affect your experience as an actor on set for a long term. Even things like how residuals get hidden or get packaged, moving expenses as an actor out of town, how you're going to get taxed, whether you're going to get taxed from this state and then this state and then the federal government, or this country and then your country, and all these things that are complex. But don't be afraid that you don't know anything yet because you haven't booked this kind of contract. So reach out to those other actors, know people who are a few steps ahead, and reach out to them and ask them what's happening. And I also wanted to point out something that you had said too in a conversation I had about one of the excuses often with the pay disparity is, well, this actor has all these more credits. They have all these more credits, so of course their quote is going to be higher. And I just had a friend who went through a negotiation, then that was the excuse that was being used. And this actor had a lot of experience and a resume and time on set that was really valuable. And they were told, well, this other actor, though, they have all this other stuff. And through working with an equality group, explained to them, well, that argument doesn't hold up legally. And here's why. Because if a group has been marginalized consistently, then they cannot have the advantage of having that higher resume. They cannot have the opportunity to book at the mathematical level of that other actor. So you cannot use legally the explanation that that person has more cred than the actor negotiating, because the reason that actor has the more cred is because of systems that have been in place that create inequality. And so when trying to create and trying to make sure we are going to value equality as a company, you can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah, exactly. It's such bullshit. It's such bullshit that, yes, the system is built that if I was a white male and I booked my first series regular, you are going to get paid more than the black male will. You are going to get paid way more than the black female will. So you're automatically advanced at a higher rate. It doesn't matter. And then 10 years later, when you're saying, hey, I think I'm being devalued here, then they're going to point to the history of the flawed system that had already occurred. So going into try and close this gap, which is all we can do, is to try and close this gap. Because even if it feels like good money to you now, 5 years later, you're going to be sitting on that set and it's going to just gnaw and just eat at you when you know that you are not being valued. And so, like all things, we can only do the best that we know at the time. And so arming yourself ahead of time and doing the research, doing the information, calling your friend, I do the same thing. I feel so fortunate and blessed. And I've built conversations with my friends to say, hey, talk to me about what's going on here, what's there, like, how much are you making? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's happening? So that you can have those conversations, so that you have enough information so that you can, just do the best that you can at the time. Because there's a lot of ground and there's a lot you can get if you have the right information.
It is not in their best interest to offer it to you. You have to ask. And so if you don't know what to ask for, they won't tell you. But wait, Desean, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by We Audition. That's weaudition.com, promo code SelfTapeMay. I have to tell you, I love We Audition. We have people participating from Australia, from New Zealand, from Paris, from England. Whatever time zone you need a reader in, they are there for you. A really hard part about Self-Tape May is that slump. You guys are probably just like, once you get like between 8 and 13, it's hard. Like 8 and 13 are hard to get through. And sometimes you've like burnt out all your readers. Here's the thing. That's totally normal. It's super common. You know who's not burnt out is the person who just woke up in Australia today. They're here for you. weaudition.com, promo code SelfTapeMay. If you have a listener question, please call 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hey, Audrey. This is Dorian coming from Toronto. I just had a question for you. It's a little embarrassing. I've watched probably I think I've probably watched almost every episode of your podcast. And you always make reference to this idea of different actor phases. Like you refer to some people as phase 1 actors, phase 2, and so on and so on. But for the life of me, I don't know in which episode you explained what the different phases mean. I mean, maybe I tuned out for like a minute or something and missed it. But I was just wondering, could you please explain specifically what you mean by someone who is a phase 1 actor, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, or phase 0, if there even is a phase 0? How does one go between the different phases? Love the show. Thank you very much. We love you up here in Canada. And bye. Thank you.
Yay, Canada! Love it, you guys. Okay, so as far as how to get from one phase to the other, I'm not going to be able to answer that in a listener question. You're going to have to do what you've done, which is listen to 86 episodes of this podcast. If I could bottle and sell and make clearly how to easily and cleanly go from one phase to another, I would be super wealthy. I'm not. Yet.
Google says otherwise.
I mean, Google legit says that I'm worth $2 million. And everyone, my sister was like, hey, that's how my sister talks. Hey, are you rich? I Googled you and Google says you're worth $2 million. And I was like, if I was worth $2 million, do you think I would be borrowing mom's car when I come into town? Answer, no, I would not. I digress. Phase one. Phase one actor is, just out of college, or maybe you're a second act actor and you're just starting to get your stuff together. So this is an actor who is getting their headshots, isn't maybe union yet, is getting into their first projects, getting on camera maybe for the first couple times in terms of someone else's work, just getting their stuff up on casting networks, on breakdown services, things like that. And just trying to get your feet wet. So that's phase one. Phase two is you've got some co-stars, you're union now, maybe some casting directors know who you are, you've got an agent, maybe you booked a commercial. Phase three is an actor that is working pretty consistently. This is a professional actor. This is somebody who more or less is making their health insurance every year. Some years they may make $120,000, some years they may make $20,000. An actor's life goes up and down. That's just part of how it goes. But if this actor, a phase three actor, were to say, yeah, my agent is so-and-so, that anyone in town would actually know who that agent is. So you've got a leveled up representation. You've got a resume of recognizable credits. You've got some recurring guest stars. You've got things like that going on. Phase four is your work really stands for itself, that you've been on some carpets maybe, you've had some publicity, you've got a series regular or two under your belt. Maybe people might even recognize you if you're at the airport. Someone's like, you're on Grey's Anatomy. I love you. You're so great. Something like that. That's really a phase four. So phase four is you still might have a $20,000 a year, because if it can happen to Sharon Stone, it can happen to you also. But basically you have reps, you have a career, you've got years of footage, and it could even not be years of footage. You can pop up to phase four. That can happen. People who are on Euphoria now, whether or not they had a resume before, they're phase four now. Uzo Aduba, after season 1 of Orange is the New Black, she didn't have her SAG card. That was her first SAG job. And then she booked Orange is the New Black. And then she got an Emmy and a SAG award. And so she went right up to the top. So, that can happen. So that's how I would define the phases. As for how you go from one to the other, I've got 86 episodes for you that you've already listened to. You could listen to them again, whatever you need to. There's really no answer to that. This career is a blast. All right, I hope that's helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
One of the analogies I always use is Oprah. She would notoriously bankrupt somebody if they weren't ready for expansion. And it was because she would say, I love this product. Everybody come to this mom and pop product. Everybody get it. And then all of America was like, oh my God, I love that thing. And they'd come in and they'd call and they would, be on top of it. And then that company wasn't ready for that hit of expansion. And so they didn't have the assembly line ready. They didn't have the call centers ready. They didn't have the customer service ready. And so the product quality would suffer. The time to get the product to the customer would suffer. The charges of things weren't high enough for the infrastructure growth. And so the company would go bankrupt before they could even get the products out. Your life can change in an instant with one audition and one opportunity. And in acting, we are the assembly line. Mm-hmm. We are customer service. We are the product. And so are you ready for all of that? And what can actors do to get that set up?
Yeah, a lot of it is your thinking. I've had to go through a very sort of huge ramp up in the last 2 years because I booked a huge show And so it's been a huge ramp up, and I've had to learn. And there's things that I did the first season that I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that was a mistake. I messed up there, blah, blah, blah. And to really learn how to prepare myself artistically, business wise, advocate for myself. Even though I've done a lot of research, there was still more to do. And also, again, leaving the tape behind of will I make it? All that stuff, like things about self-worth, because it's going to help it happen faster. And it's also probably going to happen, meaning that putting your attention, okay, I'm going out on these auditions when I book one, when I get my series regular, especially with this industry. Just look at it factually. There's more stories being told. There's more platforms being built. So there will be more opportunities, but to really plan for that moment, because what you do in this moment, it seems now, is more important than what you've done in the other moments in terms of the trajectory of your career. Meaning that when you get the series regular, have you taken care of yourself financially so that you're not back to where you were 5 years ago? So a lot of that is individual work. The other thing is this. I'm a big fan of masterminds, and I used them throughout my entire career. We would get together monthly, and it would be about 15 actors in a room, and we would talk about certain things. So if one person had an issue that they were facing, whether that be an agent or they're producing a project, et cetera, et cetera. And for 10, 15 minutes, we all would just like brainstorm on that person's problem. And what's really cool about that is that then people will give you resources or thoughts that you never thought of. And then also sometimes they open the door to their resources. The simplest form of this is like, oh, you're looking for an agent. Let me introduce you to my agent. But that's really the simplest form of it. Even just having a conversation of educating someone about something that you see in the industry, because it is so vast. And we do have corporations. We are running businesses, and we're wearing different hats, that there's a lot of information that we don't know. And so tapping into some sort of groupthink has been very, very useful for me. And honestly, I wish I could do that even more. But in this particular phase that I'm in, it's harder to get people who are willing to share. Again, why this podcast is so cool, because you get to get some of that in this sort of like, mid-range space, which I appreciate.
I love all of that. On the one hand, as you get up and level up, your circle grows and also sort of shrinks. Like there's the growth of like the people that you're hiring and the team that you're managing. But yes, also fewer people that quite frankly are still in it, are still doing the work and have accepted and embraced the lifestyle truly of being a working actor for the rest of their life, which is so much about the pursuit of the work. So a couple of things in terms of masterminds I would love to give for people is, first of all, just get to know your contracts. SAG-AFTRA has so many things on their website where they do informationals about your contract, and they don't go through it like a crazy lawyer. They're like, here's important points. It takes like an hour. Half of the hour is just going through the most fundamental basics of like, get a wardrobe bump. What is it to get on a commercial double scale? What is your rest period? Like, what are those sort of basic things? And if you don't know what any of those are, then you should go and listen to a SAG-AFTRA informational discussion about your contracts. And then they do allow time for questions. And some people will come in with their own questions, and you can learn a lot about like, oh, this actor who's maybe a little bit further ahead from me has asked this question that I didn't even realize would be a question I would have. But I'm like, oh, that's a problem that you get into? That's crazy. Don't want to get into that problem. Okay, so let me start to construct that in a different way. And what I loved about you saying, when I get this thing, I do think when you reframe your mind that way, well, if I know that I'm going to get that, if I'm operating out of the belief that I'm going to get that, then I'm going to make sure I'm constructed to receive those successes rather than like, I guess I'll deal with it if that ever happens and I get there.
When your friend levels up, sometimes it's difficult for us because it makes us sort of like, think about our own situation, and it becomes complicated because sometimes we disconnect in relationships like that. And that's also because there's this really cool thing that we have, which is we're sensitive. Actors are sensitive. It's an important part of our instrument, but you want to try and be that person that can really be there to hear from your friend the good, the bad, the mistakes, everything that they're going through, because that information 100% can teach and you learn from that. I wish that I was better about that. I feel like I failed in that regard, where it's sort of like I couldn't let my situation alone enough to be present for them. And I think that I would have learned a lot more if I was.
Also, something for actors who haven't had maybe even themselves or their friends go through that first round of real success. One thing that I found gets easier is that you realize it's a circle. And so people have like a round of success and then they're on the not round of success. And so it all becomes more humble. And the interchanging is like, oh, well, you're having a round of win. Like, that's so great. And the win feels less like, I'm so special, and more like, yay, let's see how long we can ride this one out for. And then a lot of those things that you're saying, I do think sort of get tempered over time because there's less shame around the desert wasteland section and less ego around I've climbed the mountain section.
I'm thinking about me and a friend of mine right now, where it's just sort of like we're kind of on those sort of thing and we're literally helping each other out. Like we're really there for each other emotionally and in terms of information. Like, hey, did you do this? And then I'm reminding them, hey, it's coming back around, et cetera, et cetera. So it's so true. What you're saying is so true.
I also want to talk about another resource just for the listeners, which is Abundance Bound for Miyata Edoga. It's $25. This is not a paid advertisement. Just for everyone, it's $25. And you have these mastermind groups. They're a part of the $25, which I really love. And people come on and they ask all kinds of questions from all kinds of places in their career, whether it's like, I have 5 jobs and I have $25,000 of debt, or I have worked consistently for the last 18 months. I now have $350,000 of surplus. What do I do with that? And you get questions, everything in between, and you can hear it and you can listen to it. And she has lots of resources to put yourself through money management, to understand what you're spending in your career, what you're spending on your life versus how much you're earning. And in terms of these masterminds and accessibility of perspective, I just really want to recommend that as a resource to people as well.
I just want to say that I've had personal conversations with Miyata. I think she's fantastic. Just the way that Miyata talks about me, it's beyond just the physical math of what to do, but it's also unpacking your emotional history and untying it. I think she's amazing. So
yes to all of what you just said. Yeah, I think it's so big, getting out of poverty syndrome, poverty mentality for a lot of actors, or the shame if you've come from a middle class or upper class upbringing. Sometimes there's even shame connected to that as an actor. And so she really offers resources to get around the mental state of all of our connection with money as well. But wait, Desean, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Castability.actor. That's Castability.actor. Download the app and you can get 20 free sides emailed to you within 24 hours. They have like a calendar on there, and then you get these sides, and then you can, if you want to, you can participate in their Self-Tape May promotional month extravaganza. They're doing unlimited submissions for $48, which is great, in partnership with Self-Tape May. They are so great. What happens is you get the sides, you work on them, maybe you work on them on We Audition. And then you submit your tape. You can post that with sound, first of all, to Instagram and tag Castability. And you can submit it to Castability and have a little casting director look at it. And then they rank it. And then if you're the top, another little casting director looks at it. And then they rank it. If you're still the top, another casting director will look at it. So if you're somebody that wants to use Self-Tape May in a way that gets you seen by some industry professionals, this is a great option. You don't have to. Self-Tape May can be cash. It can just be like, let's get it done. Let's have a good time. Let's fall in love with acting. Let's be silly. Let's do sides from The Little Mermaid. Why not? But if you want to do Castability Actor, I highly recommend it. Go to castability.actor/self-tape-may. That is castability.actor/self-tape-may to get 20 free sides. If you have a listener question, please call 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hi, Audrey. This is Bailey Castle calling from Los Angeles. I'm excited to share that I'm participating in Self-Tape May for the first time, and you can find my self-tapes on Instagram at tapescastle_. And my question is for the people who are not in the union, such as myself, I'm SAG eligible. How do we participate in SAG union-only events, meetings, voting? Any information like that would be super helpful. Thanks, Audrey.
Hi, thanks so much for this wonderful question. As a pre-member, you actually can't go to any of the meetings and things like that because they're closed for negotiating reasons and secrecy reasons, not to be like, you can't come in, but more just because they're like, we're talking special contract stuff that is about negotiating with other people and we don't want them to know what we really want versus what we don't really want. That said, there is a lot that you can learn if you listen to the SAG AFTRA podcast. There's a really great podcast called the SAG AFTRA podcast, and they have all of their stuff up on there, and that is really informative. They talk about contracts. They talk about movements that they're making. They're talking about things that they're up against, things that they're looking ahead towards. So if you want to educate yourself, as Desean and I are talking about in this episode, if you want to educate yourself about the union before you get union, the SAG-AFTRA podcast, absolutely, I totally recommend it. Every time I'm so moved, I cry. I listen to the podcast and I'm like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. So thanks so much. Happy listening.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Another thing you talked about with regard to the educational system, you went to Juilliard, I went to conservatory education, and talking about this artistic conservatory education through a white lens. I have to say, you said something that I hadn't thought about, which was actors of color doing material created and written by all white voices. And I have to say, that never occurred to me. And I just put myself in a position of like, oh, right, what if all of the material I was going to do was written by people that I felt didn't understand my experience or my identity, and that was determining the success of my experience as an actor and my ability to get into character or my ability to identify with this story. And I thought it was so beautiful of a perspective, not just for the conservatory education, also for everyone in acting classes and also for all the creatives out there.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And the first thing I want to say is so cool that you are receptive to be able to even see that impact, because there's so many people that you would say that to, and they would still say, yeah, no, I don't get it. Like, I don't see the disadvantage in that at all. They're like, I'm from wherever, but I'm playing this character. So there's so many people that you give them that information and they are still not receptive. Those are people, I think, that are just really connected and dependent on their privilege. The other thing I want to say to you is that when a woman pointed out to me in the play reading, there's only 2 women in this play. I was like, wow, as a male, I walk into the perspective that men should be speaking more and that there should be more men in the play. And I had to unpack that for myself. Even right now, I'm doing a play, 7 Guitars. It's an August Wilson play. You know, I'm excited because I've never done an August Wilson play before. And, we had cast dinner last night and the women were saying, the women aren't speaking enough in this play. And it's so true. It's so true. But with that said, in terms of the whole journey of decolonizing arts education, is that, yes, it is harder to find your voice when the nuances of what has been written are spaces that feel just more distant to you. When I think of Chekhov, right, I'm not seeing my face in it. So what happens is that in order to become those characters, there's literally a sense of like, I have to let go of my identity in order to walk into the space, in order to be educated. My identity doesn't necessarily serve me. which is terrible because you want nothing else than to see these characters in full life realization. And so that really impacts you on these deep subliminal levels in terms of your work and showing up. And it's a hard thing, and it's a conversation that people have to have so that we can dialogue around it about, if there's things that you can do, which is just, of course, have more playwrights of color. I'm not going to call anybody out, not today, but I was recently in a situation where I noticed the library inside the theater. And I said, you don't have BIPOC writers in this library. You have nothing but Anglo white writers represented here. Like, you got to fix that. It may feel surface or innocuous to you, but so it's just so much of like, I need to do something else in order to enter this space. Mm-hmm. And so like, those are the conversations that we need to have, and people need to get committed to it, but it's so hard.
I'm so glad that you brought all those points up, because I really do feel like, and I felt this way for such a long time, that in our community, which is about humanity, the human experience, empathy, getting into a character is about empathizing with that character, no matter what their perspective is, and finding a place that you can bring that to life. And I just feel so strongly that if we can't have these conversations and have a growing awareness in our community as actors, then I really think we're fucked. I just think we have a tremendous responsibility.
We're such an important part of the conversation. And we're an important part of the conversation because who else is being taught empathy? That is what we're being taught. And yes, artists tend to be more empathetic. And I think what we're saying, and what is difficult about the industry right now, is that I know for a lot of people, in comparison to the history of where they come from, they are accepting and empathizing and value people on the individual basis. But it's so hard to get people to also acknowledge the systemic issues and the systemic challenges. And that is so deeply uncomfortable. So it's like, even you, yes, I'm talking to you, who may have, a whole rainbow of tribes of friends, but the work is uncomfortable. If for any of us, there's not something in terms of how you're investigating your relationship into race, sexuality, gender, if there's not a part of it that is uncomfortable for yourself, then you're not really doing the work. If you feel like, I have no issues or hangups with any of those, okay.
Right. That's really beautiful. You're just such a wealth of information. I know that you're a teacher and a coach, which I also love so much in terms of getting through this idea about working actors, and that there's been for, I think, years, decades, this idea of being a working actor and then being a teacher and a coach, and that they can't be synonymous. And we've just, I think, dismantled that over the last, 5 to 10 years in a beautiful way.
The coaching studio that I have is called the Last Acting Studio. And I'm having conversations with a lot of people through the National Alliance of Acting Teachers Association about decolonizing arts education. So it's a really, really just sort of tough period. And so one of the things that I'm hoping to contribute to is to really be able to see myself in the world that is being created fictionally. And so to really start to give people tools and innovation in terms of arts education as to then, how can we do that? Especially if you're in a marginalized group. There's so much work that we have to do as actors in general in about dismantling us not seeing ourselves over there in that sort of vision work. And so those are some of the, basic ideas within the school, is to really help people who can't or have difficulty seeing themselves in that space, but techniques to get you there.
Love that. Great. So now I always ask my final questions. Do you have any social media?
My social media is Desean Terry, and then the acting studio is the Last Acting Studio on Instagram. Both of these are Instagram. I'm way better on Instagram than anything else, and people can follow both of those things. Yeah.
Wonderful. What do you wish somebody had taught you or managed to get you to understand when you were just a wee babe entering this business?
You know what? This. I'm having a conversation with somebody right now who's this talented, rich actor. And he spoke to me about a little bit of something insecure that occurred. And in my mind, I said to myself, dude, you're here, you're talented, you're handsome. Like, all you have to do is show up. Just show up, but show up in the fullness of who you are. And it's gonna come. Like all the other stuff, it's gonna come. I wish that I could have embraced that a bit more. Some people did say that to me, but I didn't believe it because I was so addicted to the hard work of it and, not feeling deserving. And so, yeah, I wish I could have accepted that more.
Love that. What is the best part about the business for you?
How much opportunity there is for you to be creative in it. Literally the first start of my career, I felt stifled by the business because I interpreted the business to be all the things that I did not want to do, meaning that I was like, oh, well, I don't go to parties, I don't do that, or I'm not this, because I literally created this conversation for myself that the business steps that I needed to make to build my career were all the things that I just so happenstance was not good at. And so once I passed that paradigm and I said, oh, wait, hold up. All these things of people that I've listened to or chose to listen to, I was like, wow, this thing is way more expansive than that. And I can be just as creative in the business side of this business as I am in the artistic side of this business, actually possibly even more, because I feel like when I get to set, my primary thing is to listen and respond. But then all the creativity around that about like, what conversations do I want to have? How do I want to have conversations? Who do I engage with? Do I spend time doing some theater? Like there's so much creativity. And, one thing that people told me, you can't help build your television and film career doing theater in Los Angeles. And that's bullshit because I'm 100%, person who did that. Like Producers of the Morning Show saw me in a play, and the agents and things and casting directors. I believe that if you see me work on the stage, which is just a place that I love to be on, I'm hoping that you resonate with my soul and my spirit, right? And so it's like, why deny yourself that? If you love the theater, why deny yourself that to say that, well, that's not going to serve me in my acting career in film and TV? And I think that that's a lot of the things that we tell ourselves that, oh, I can't use this to my benefit in this career. And you got to dismantle that.
Yeah, I love that. What is the worst part about the business for you?
That it is cyclical, meaning that, all this cool advice I'm giving you, I'm going to be suffering from it and making mistakes in 2 days. You do got to go through it, just like an artistic process where it's like, I've never done a production, a play, a show where at some point in it, I'm like, we are not going to get here. This is not going to work out. And it's just sort of like, that's how it is about my career, about the next job. And it's torturous because even though there's definitely more comfort is the cyclical nature of it, as you say, but going through it is just tough. And so those moments of like, fuck, I'll never get hired again. I'm bombing this audition. I bombed this self-tape. I bombed this interview. It's just really tough to move through it. I don't think that there's any way to avoid it. To avoid it, I think would mean to be lying to yourself. There's that cool Mark Twain quote. There's only 2 types of public speakers in this world: those that get nervous and those that lie. So if you're not going through that neuroses, you're hiding and you're denying yourself. And that's just tough, but it's just a part of it. Glory to God, I had some like really big moments on the morning show this season. And yeah, I was nervous. But what I've definitely learned though is I tell myself, and I try to tell other people this too, is like, rather than say to yourself that nervousness, that there's something wrong with it, it's really just sort of like, yeah, again, I'm sensitive. I'm nervous. And that nervousness is making me uncomfortable right now, but it's also part of the thing that makes me exciting. So you don't want to take that out, but you're taking out your sensitivity. So it's like, you just got to learn to live and flow with that and accept it and embrace it so that when I'm in that nervous space, I'm way more comfortable living in it and being okay with it and acknowledging it and know that it's probably going to burst into, some sort of excitement or, something that serves the work. I'm way more comfortable with the process of that now.
Yeah, love that. But wait, Desean, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Casting Networks. That's Casting Networks, really for all your audition and booking needs. I can't tell you how many times I've been on Casting Networks this last week. I have been auditioning. It has been magical. My notifications are being texted to me, emailed to me. It is so easy for me to log in, and I'm getting auditions. Why am I getting so many auditions, you ask? Part of it is because I have lots of materials on there. I have the premium membership, and the premium membership offers lots of materials, special skills, multiple headshots, lots of footage of these special skills, all of those sorts of things. Really, to be a working professional actor, you have to have a Casting Networks profile. You have to have the premium membership. And I want you to save $50 off castingnetworks.com/Audrey for your $50 off. If you have a listener question, please call 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hey, Audrey. Chris Clausen listening from Los Angeles. Don't forget your towel. That's got to be a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference, right? Like, you're super nerdy. Like, you've got to be that nerdy, I'm guessing.
Hey, Chris. It's not a Hitchhiker's Guide reference. Is it true that my husband likes to think that it's a Hitchhiker's Guide reference? Yes. But no, it is not a Hitchhiker's Guide reference. For the record, my husband is the super nerdy one. He is the executive producer of this podcast. How many copies of Hitchhikers do you have, honey?
I mean, at least a half a dozen.
Like in this house, there's probably 6 copies of all of the books, right?
All 5 of the trilogy of books.
There's a lot of Hitchhikers in this house. I have never read Hitchhiker's Guide. You know, it's just not going to be, he's making a face. So here's the thing. Though we have lots of copies of Hitchhikers, it is not a Hitchhiker's reference. Keep guessing.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay, and final thing is mildly interesting. This could be anything you like or are interested in, or something you've learned, or something you ate, whatever it is, anything mildly interesting.
There is this breakfast sandwich over at Civil Coffee on, it's either Figueroa or York. I get the two confused. It is the EBC breakfast sandwich. And it's one of those sandwiches, you know, it's really good when you know that there's like a whole lot of stuff in this, and this is probably not the healthiest sandwich for me. But then when you eat it, you're like, it's so light and fluffy. You're just like, this can't be bad for you. This time in this sandwich, they've done it in a way that it's not bad for you. That's how good it is. It's such a beautiful sandwich that I'm going to give them some love because it's on my mind right now.
I love it. We're going to post it in the show notes, everyone, so you can go find this sandwich. Our audience dies for like the food recommendations. Then they post and they're like, oh my God, Audrey, you're right. This thing, I'm about it. Yeah. I have a mildly interesting, it's my favorite thing I discovered at Target for everybody. All genders, all of it. Everyone, the sock section in the women's section of Target has socks that are categorized in the following way: soft, ultra soft, cozy. And in the time of this pandemic, I would just like to recommend to everyone, you will never make anyone sad if you show up with socks from Target that are labeled ultra soft, cozy. And in fact, they're almost always sold out. They have them to go all the way up to your knees. They have ankles. They've got in between. I just couldn't love them more and enjoy your ultra soft, cozy socks from Target.
And I just say that as a man, I did not know that I had those options in socks. So I guess this is sexism.
Listen, my husband has it straight up. I've started buying like women's cozy pants, women's cozy shirts and things, just like in a larger size. And he can't believe what he's been missing out on. Even the stuff that's made for like men, quote unquote, that is in the cozy, it's still like, it's not as like comforting.
And is that maybe then why we don't understand the 3,000 thread sheet count. Is that
Yeah.
what they call it?
Yeah, high thread count sheets.
When I feel them, I'm like, oh yeah, there is something nice about it. But maybe I'm just not habituated that if I had been getting the socks this whole time and
Right.
in value of the softness, then I would seek that out more.
I've no lie learned the maternity section at Target is where greatness of clothes that feel good on your body lies. And I will go through the maternity section and I'll just feel the insides of like the sweatshirts and the pants and everything's got like such expansion for your waist, obviously. And it's just so comfy. And I'm like, yeah, this needs to go to the masses. Like, I'm really feeling this. So everyone who wants to just feel comfy, cozy in their Zoom meetings, go get some. And thank you so much.
Yo, thank you. I've had so much fun.
I've had a blast. Break a leg on your self-tape.
Such a pleasure, Audrey.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we've got Haley Wood, Haley O'Connor at Haley Self-Tapes, woohoo! Or Haley Wood, HayleyWould. I mean, is she creative or what? Haley Wood, she's the first Self-Tape May Challenge winner, and we have her back on for an update episode. I've got good news for you. She's had a lot of growth and success, which I'm so proud of her for. So if you want some inspiration to keep going in the month of May, I've got the episode for you. Special thanks to Desean. Desean, you are so great. You killed it this season on the morning show. You gave them hell on that show in the best acting way possible. I loved watching you. I loved this interview. Thank you so much for all of your work, both in front of the camera and in our community. You are truly a gift, and we are blessed to have you be a part of the creative storytelling world. This episode was mixed and mastered by Thomas Hank Snodgrass, produced by Jesse Lumen, still so handsome, everyone. It's been a hard couple years, and I have to say, he's managed to get even handsomer. This episode was edited by Taylor Martirana. Taylor! Show music by Ari De Niro and theme song by Alok Mehta and 108 Hill. All right, everyone, don't forget your towel.